Accounts of witchcraft date back to Matthew Hopkins during the English Civil War, a witch hunter paid for his services in the eastern countries of England. About 200 people, roughly a fifth of the population in 1559, were executed due to his actions or influence. Markers of witchcraft were well publicized at the time, which may have influenced both fear and testimonials. Hopkins described his methods in 1647. Interrogate the accused constantly. Deprive them of sleep. Submerge them in water. An examination would also take place. Hopkins was on the lookout for what he called devil's marks. In short, this was anything deemed unnatural. In Salem or towns nearby, an examination of the body would take place in an ordinary, in search of this witch's teat. Again, anything deemed unnatural, markers such as an extra nipple. According to the Book of Magic from Antiquity to Enlightenment, evidence of this polythelia occurs in roughly 1 in 50 women, but twice as likely in men.
So one of the things that came out for me was a lot of this demonizing of women, and not only women, it was men too. But I know there was more women in general when I was watching that, and it looked like almost as if it was maybe only 1 or 2 people in the land that caused the frantic to start, but that it had already been starting in Europe. And it kind of, because they settled there first, the Puritans, right, settled there first, it looked to me like there was just kind of a scared fever in the air.
I get a couple things, but definitely that same thing you're talking about is it felt like they were breeding fear. One of my teachers used to talk about disease being disease in the body. And it feels like there was some sort of discomfort as a collective.
What my godfather had said to me, if you're a woman, that you are a witch technically, or he meant that as in you are more connected to your intuition, and it means you are naturally connected to nature easier than a man. A man can work on it and get to that point, but we're by nature closer to nature. And to me, he said that's all it meant. And he said we've demonized, even the culture has demonized the idea of what a witch even is. We put black mold on their nose and they're flying in a broom, and that's really not the case. And even if these girls were, holding hands and doing circular motions in the forest, is that really that big of a deal? I mean, to me, even if they were doing that, there's this whole thing in Wicca. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Wicca, but they do that spinning thing because it creates kind of like a circular energy vortex to work to just create that bigger energy if you're trying to work with anything, whatever you're trying to do. And I know if you even think about it in the world, if you look at the vortexes on our planet, we have one in Sedona, we have one in Ojai. I don't know on your East Coast where you guys have vortexes, but there's vortexes all around. And to me, it's like, oh, that's just energy that's coming from nature. How is that wrong,
I like that idea that it's not wrong to use nature, and how beautiful that women have this opportunity to return to their bodies once a month. That is labeled a curse, but it is you can't ignore your body when something happens cyclically and happens to be in line with the cycle of the moon. You can spell from your family, someone in your family?
Oh yeah, my godfather.
That is beautiful. What a great gift to be able to connect with nature and to have these conversations.
I don't know if you've ever had any feelings of past lives or who you may have been in a past life or have any connection there, but I don't think I was in Salem, or we'll see when we get there, right? Because I think sometimes you need to return to the space to feel what you actually feel. And you might get something. I know when I went to Florence, Italy, I got a feeling. I was like, oh my God, I've been here before. And it makes sense to me because I do have a past life memory, and don't worry, it doesn't feel sad when I talk about it. I do remember myself getting killed. I remember myself being kidnapped by 2 figures that were shadow figures in my mind. And one was a girl, one was a boy. They tied my hands behind my back for speaking up. I know it was for speaking up. and they drowned me. They did not, they didn't, no hanging, no fire, but I could see myself drowning. But for some reason, I don't feel the anxiousness you would think that you would feel from being drowned. Although it took me a long time to get back into the water. I was very scared to go into the water in present time. I had to work through that. And then I can see myself from another perspective, looking at myself. And that, I looked it up. I spent a lot of time looking into that and the dress I was wearing, because I could see it was blue and it was kind of big and like seemed very Renaissance period. So I feel like, you know, this has been happening to keep your voice down for a long time, you know, and it still continues to go on. You may not get killed for it, or maybe you will, but now it's more political, you know, that political side where if you speak up and you say something you should not, you never know what's going to happen. But I feel at least it's kind of, even though we preach that there's this, you know, you can say anything that you want in America, there's always some kind of, you know, your parents will be like, this is not the time and place for this. Or somebody in your family will say that, right? Like if you speak up about something that's not right in front of many people. I don't know if you felt like that too.
Definitely. Thanks for sharing that. And I'm glad you brought up past lives, because I feel like some of the fear for expressing who we are today comes from that, either as witnessing or whatever is stored within our lineage. And there are two things about speaking up that came to mind, because part of me was, when we talked about speaking to this, I was like, what really is important? And to me, it was about having these uncomfortable conversations, or being willing to speak up about something that is shamed. You know, like there's just so much shame packed with so many marginalized groups that we need this opportunity. Emmanuel Acho, he does the series on uncomfortable conversations with a Black man, and he unpacks the way different families live, and I feel like those conversations bring peace. There's one other interview I watched with Joy Mendoza. I could be wrong on her last name, but she is a survivor of assault. And, you know, after she had that experience, her family didn't like sweep it under the rug. That night they sat down and they're like, tell me what happened. I can't imagine as a parent hearing that, but what peace does that bring, and what opportunity does that provide for her and other survivors to have that opportunity to speak, you know, whether it is history that we choose to ignore. The past, not a place to dwell, rather a place to provide insights to rewrite the future. Will we as a society continue to play out the same patterns? What about you, your family too? When you look at your family tree, what do you see? Will you continue to play out the same patterns in this lifetime? Join us as we explore a point in history of race, the Salem witch trials. Yes, there was a gag order placed on the executions in Salem. While this is not the only point in U.S. history that has layers concealed, it surely creates the opportunity to learn. When you think about witchcraft, what comes to mind? When you hear the word witch, what do you think? Are those opinions your own, or have they been cast down, or better yet, created? Again, join us, Divine Scarlet, Meg the Medium, Zolin, and Amin Devi as we explore the town of Salem to learn more about a time in history erased. Please see the link in the description box for our YouTube video. Thank you for listening, liking, sharing, and subscribing.